start. Give it a second for people to actually join us, because it takes a second. What I've always noticed is it takes a moment before you do this, and then you gotta wait until you like gain a little audience. Because if you start talking and you don't, and the web, the thing I don't like, the web will give us an audience, but we have no knowledge that they're there until we're done. So it's like, and right now we've got no audience. We're waiting.
Retweeted it, so we'll see how we do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the people who, unless they have the app on their phone, that's where you pick up. Like I'll pick up 100 web people, but no one on the app.
And that's one of the. Once they make it easier to watch, like from the,
well, there has to also be a Android app, so I think that's the other thing. And it's interesting. This microphone is when you go this screen, the microphone's much more directional and good because I think it comes off of this.
Yeah.
And when you go the other direction, you're using the bottom mic, and it's very broad. And you get very hollow.
So we built an iPad rig where we have an iPad on a monopod with an attachment where you could have like lights and a microphone attachment.
Right.
We had tried we've used wireless mics before.
Right.
But they vary. Like unless you get a really expensive one, like top notch, the cheaper ones just don't work. So like we have like a wired mic that we can attach to it, which isn't ideal because what we love about having like this iPad rig is it's like so mobile. Like you can take it, point it at different people. But yeah, having that like wired attachment is a little bit of a drag.
Now we're not getting a lot of viewers on here. I'm assuming that people on the web are watching, so we're just going to start chatting a little bit.
Great.
So we're here at Digital Hollywood. This is a conference that is where really broadcast and content creation hits the web. You have a lot of broadcasters. You have a lot of people who are on the new broadcast world. You hear a lot of discussion of, I heard yesterday a big discussion about the new fronts instead of the upfronts. So we know that the upfronts are what the networks do, say what their content is. The new fronts are, for the people who aren't broadcasters. I always love that they have to make the distinction, of this. But there's a lot of conversation going on here. I'd say, today, and by intent, the panels are a lot about virtual reality. Have you been sitting in on the virtual reality panels?
Yeah, I went to one earlier today. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's funny. There were 2 panels last night, and it's interesting to see the difference of what is going on with their conversation. I did just hear a great one in this panel where he said, if they don't get more views than they're getting, then they're no better than dogs on skateboards. And I retweeted that. I like that little quote. The question becomes, where does VR really hit? Yes, for gaming, I see a total, application, but, you got to buy a headset, or you have to do the cardboard box with your phone thing.
So one of the VR sessions that I went to described a quote from Mark Zuckerberg describing how he said you should imagine watching a basketball game as if you're courtside from a virtual reality headset. And he thinks that video games are just going to get totally supplanted by all sorts of other kinds of programming that's virtually and virtual reality and augmented reality. They just haven't built those that kind of content out yet. And people are kind of getting used to 3D a bit now, like that their initial surge has kind of waned, but the tech and the content is catching up. And once they really make it easy to watch, like from courtside at a basketball game or whatever kind of sports, I think that's when we'll really start seeing more adoption.
Well, I'm wondering, because you look at virtual reality and you really are talking about that there's experiential, okay, I'm at the basketball game, I can be at the basketball game, but I'm not, okay? And I can have the 360 view experience of being in that environment. Or you talk about, I heard a lot of content creators talk about being in the POV. In other words, okay, I'm going to put you in the POV of somebody else who you're not, okay? So you've never been this person, you're going to get to experience something that otherwise you couldn't because it just would be impossible, unsafe, whatever. Or you just weren't there when it really happened. There's immersive journalism was a discussion about taking people and putting them in places so that they could have the emotional feel and impact of an event they weren't at, or from a perspective they weren't there. So it seems like this is going in several ways of gaming, content, And I'm wondering if that'll fractionalize it as well.
I like how Guillermo del Toro describes how video game systems, there's a misnomer that it's about video games. He says they're really story engines. And increasingly we're going to see kinds of content where it's completely integrated, where you'll have a video game that connects to a TV show, which connects to a movie. And really it's just about that added immersive experience and a different way to tell and experience and take part in stories.
Yeah, I think it's really gonna do. I think they got to get past the barrier of the headsets. I mean, $350, $500 for a headset, that'll work in a gaming environment. It'll work in certain sense. But we already know that Xbox is a gaming environment, then trying to be transferred into a content environment. That didn't work. I mean, that wasn't successful. So I wonder if, they're going to be able to overcome this. And I'm seeing the cardboard headset, cardboard, and this is the idea of take a cardboard box, stick your phone in it, and now you have a VR headset. And it's I think as a player it might work, although I still think that you're now dependent upon the phone's accelerometers and other elements to make it towed. So I don't know if it'll be as great an experience as wearing the headset. You certainly can't participate. It's not like you can have the joysticks like we have down here with the guy playing. You can be your own Jedi Master and swinging the lightsabers and doing all of that. But it's interesting. So beyond VR, what else have you seen here that really strikes you?
So I've really enjoyed the conversations about the technology that's already here and coming out. In particular, I'm coming from a session that was very bullish on mobile technologies and cell phones and tablets. And I asked the panel, though, about the next generation of TV sets. I just purchased a 4K Ultra HD TV, which is a much bigger jump than I was expecting in terms of the visual resolution. But the smart TV functions are still just leave a lot to be desired. And the set-top boxes that act as interfaces for smart TVs, they're good, but it's still not all the way there yet. Apple TV is very limited in terms of what you can do. You can't even access a web browser. Roku has an open ecosystem, and it's better. But and at the session, the moderator referenced Walter Isaacson's book where he interviewed Steve Jobs, and the climax of the book is Steve Jobs telling Isaacson that he cracked the code of TV and the interfaces, how to basically make the equivalent of iTunes for television, a TV guide that's personalized for any individual. And apparently Tim Cook on a recent earnings call, the moderator recounted that Tim Cook said, we're implementing Steve Jobs' vision. And this next generation of Apple TV, which is coming out, I think this fall, could be that big step. And if once we get the devices on the TV sets, which you can control from your mobile device, but actually is on the wall with that big screen, it's an accident right now that millennials are spending all their time watching iPads. It's because it's cheaper and accessible, but when the TV sets are really worth it, we're going to see a big jump, and we're going to see much more of an accessing of the average of 4 hours of time that Americans spend a day watching their TV sets.
Well, and I agree. There's been a lot of conversation here